Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast helping your family cruise a little smarter. And I'd like to welcome back to the show all the way down in LA. How you doing today, Chris?
Doing so good because we're going to be talking about cruising, actual cruising again. That we've been doing a lot of actual cruising episodes lately, but this is an especially exciting one because I know the person who went on this cruise.
Well, before we bring our guest in today, I'm just kidding.
Everyone, we have a guest that has only been on the show a couple times. Her name's Christy Puttick from Pack Your Pixie Dust.
And she was recently on a cruise. How you doing today, Christy?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Good. I can't wait to hear about this. I feel like you're going to give an honest take, but I know that, spoiler alert, you liked it because you're already going on like 10 more cruises.
I loved it. God, I love Disney Cruise Line.
Before we talk about this, well, let's talk about the particulars and then I'll ask you the question. But like, who went on the cruise? When did you book it? Which cruise did you go on?
I'm going to go backwards apparently. I went on the Disney Dream. We booked it a week before. I was supposed to cruise the previous week, but my son was quarantined, so that didn't happen. And then he didn't have COVID. So then we took new COVID tests and we went on the following week. So I literally booked it the week before. Cruising was my husband and my 8-year-old son. This
is the question. I mean, I love hearing everybody's answers too, but what was it like? And I'm going to jump ahead here. What was it like getting back and cruising with Disney after so long and kind of, all the podcasts we've done together, talking about Disney Cruise Line and thinking about it. What was that moment like?
It was surreal because it was like all of a sudden, and we would be walking and Blake would be like, are we on the cruise ship yet? Are we on the cruise ship yet? And we're on the gangway. And then we were waiting and he was like, what are we waiting for? And it was just, I can't describe the feeling. You guys would be so much better at this than I am. I'm the worst at describing everything. You guys know that. But it was magical. What a horrible thing to say, way too simple of a statement. But it really was magical. And as it was when I went on that test cruise on the Allure, the crew are so happy to be back working and so happy to be there. That makes the experience that much more magical, that much better.
I can totally imagine that. I saw that picture of, as you guys were driving up, you kind of texted Chris and I the picture of the Dream. And I remember driving by there just a month or a couple months ago, and there was no ships in the port. So I could imagine, just driving up, and we've all had that feeling before when you see the Dream or the Fantasy or the Magic, parked out there and you're getting ready to get on her.
There was squealing. Absolutely, definitely squealing in our car of excitement. And then even seeing the little sign that says Disney Dream to get off the highway, squealing, because it was so exciting to see that sign lit up again, telling us where to go. Kind of, the directions are awful trying to get to these cruise ships. You have to literally look for the cruise ship and just drive there. But oh my God, so awesome.
That sounds amazing. It also just feels a little cathartic given how long it has been since we have had a chance to step on one of these beautiful ships.
So long, so cathartic.
So I guess let's just do it like normal, like one of our normal trip reports, I guess. We talked about who went and what were some of the things that you had to do ahead of time. And I don't really want to get too deep into the specifics of all the COVID related stuff, because as we know, it's changing daily. It just changed again, where everybody is going to have to be vaccinated, even off on the cruises on the West Coast, if you're 12 and older. So what did you guys have to do ahead of time? And what could you book? Was there anything available to book ahead of time?
Actually, I at one point had a cabana booked. So jumping, of course, to the last question always, I don't know why I do this, but I had a cabana booked. I ended up canceling it because we were like, if the beach isn't that full, we don't really need a cabana, was sort of my thought process. And the only reason a cabana would have been good is it rained quite a bit in the afternoons of both our days at Castaway. So the cabana would have been nice because it did become sunny again and you could have hid in your cabana when the monsoons were happening each of those days. So at one point I had a cabana. I was actually able to book Palo the week before. I had to stalk the app. I just kept looking and looking, and our Facebook group was actually really helpful. They would say, oh, Apollo's available at this time now, and Apollo's available at that time. So people were able to get these reservations the week before. We were able to book Kids Club time. So you had to book an hour. You could book an hour and a half each day before the cruise. So we did that for Blake. I think that's all we booked. We could have booked for the rafts at Castaway, which we ended up not doing. There was still some beverage tastings too. A lot of them were like the brandy or whatever kind of grown-up drinks that I don't partake in. And I don't think it's really brandy, but it's something that I don't drink. Some of those were still available to book last minute as well.
Probably the cognac tasting.
Yeah, that one for sure. And there was one other that I would never do that was also available, and not even because of allergies. Okay, then the testing beforehand. Just really briefly, my son had to be tested prior. Anybody unvaccinated had to be tested prior to the cruise. And at that time, it was between 5 days and 1 day before the cruise. The day before counts as 1 day. So our cruise was leaving on Friday. We could test him on Sunday. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That is the 5 days. So use that type of thinking. Now, when Disney says you have to test 3 days before, which can I just say is insane. So testing 5 days before makes so much more sense. So people that are leaving don't leave their state if they might have COVID. So now the requirement is you have to test between 3 and 1 day before, but you have to make sure you get those test results in on time. So anyway, you get your test results, you upload them to the Safe Passage website. And now you could only even update that and sign on to Safe Passage 2 weeks before your cruise. During my cruise, you could do it 30 days before. Now it's 2 weeks. Safe Passage is that company that Disney contracted with to handle that portion of cruising right now. Mine and Dave's vaccination records were uploaded, and then my son's test results were uploaded. Then when we got to the port, we drove in. So we had to drive through the parking lot, and we got in line to do our COVID test. The crew member assists you, or the employee that's standing there assist you in doing the test, but you have to do it to your own child. Now, going forward, everybody's going to have to take a COVID test. So I assume that this process is going to be the same. And then for the listeners as well, when they were first doing these tests and people were going to port, it was taking about 2 hours to get your result, up to 2 hours to get your results. Then they were only testing, 500 people maybe? Now they're going to be testing 1,500 people potentially. It's going to take a while. So I would just tell people you can't really plan on having your lunch. I mean, you're going to a second lunch situation if you are boarding a Disney cruise. So, you need to bring some food, bring your water, bring all those things, and then you could wait. Fortunately, if you're using the parking garage, you get to wait in your car. So as long as you have a cozy car. If you're getting dropped off or you're taking Disney's transportation, then they drop you off to drop your luggage. And then you walk to these tents, these big, giant, air-conditioned, but as Scott said, they do get a little bit warm tents, and you sit and wait for your test results there. Oh, and then they email you, and your app uploads when your test results come in. So that was exciting. Ours took about 40 minutes.
So once you get that done, then you continue with the boarding process where you go into the terminal. What do you do there? And then you get on the ship, or you wait till your boarding time is called and you get on the ship?
Yeah. So you go into the terminal. They now have security downstairs. And they have separate lines depending on if you're a first-time cruiser or silver, gold, or platinum, and concierge. So they actually still take the platinum cruisers over to the side where concierge also does their security. So they're like the last row of people. You go through your security that way, like normal. Then you take the escalator upstairs, and it's just the big room with the ship. The ship is still there to take pictures in front of, the big model ship. And then they do boarding groups. Our boarding group was already called by the time we got to board. Or by the time we got there. That's it. It was easy.
That seems pretty common at this point to do the test yourself. It's more efficient for them. It also reduces contact if the test were to come back positive. So
yeah, she wasn't very far away though. She would still be probably exposed enough to COVID because she was right by us, which I appreciated because I had to give this test to my kid. And I didn't know what to do. We went to, before the cruise, we took them to a place so that they could, but both times, because, we were going to cruise the week before. So we took them that week to get a COVID test. We took them to places so that they shoved the stick up their nose. It doesn't have to go in very far. So I guess I'll just say that really quick too, for the parents that are worried. Blake was fine until he was done. Then he had a little tiny cry. He was like, I was holding it back in. But he did great.
In California, we had a Dodger Stadium test site that was a drive-through test site. And they would throw the test in your car through your window, and then you would administer it to yourself, and then you would drive up to the end and basically put it in a giant trash can.
Huh.
And that was like the process. So there are ways to make them very efficient. I could see Disney even deciding, you know what, for anyone who's driving up, the test will be administered in their own car.
We were in our car.
Oh, okay.
They were outside it. Yeah, they were outside, but we were in our car. I had to get out because I had no other way to reach my child to give him this test. But we were still in our car. Dave never left the driving seat. I don't think the car was ever turned off. Yeah. And then we just drove off when they took our test from us.
Okay. So you get that email. It has added a new layer of stress to cruising situations because you don't know if you're going to get to go on your cruise until like a half hour before you walk on the ship. So that's not my favorite. In fact, if anybody is going on a cruise in the next little while, might I recommend quarantining to the best of your abilities leading up to it so that you're more likely to test negative. The problem is, I know with young kids, you can't just keep them away from everybody. There's a ton of reasons why you wouldn't be able to quarantine. But if you happen to work from home or something like that, I know if we were going on a cruise in the next couple of months, we would do our best probably a week or two before to try to stay home as much as possible. Just because I don't want to show up at the cruise terminal and then get turned away.
Sarah, who we're recording with next week from Gluten Free, Dairy Free Walt Disney World, she did that. So she is an Orlando local. She just was like, I'm not going out. I'm not seeing anybody for 10 days before the cruise. We are doing as little as possible because I do not want to be positive.
Yeah, which, if you have that ability, obviously that's a smart idea because you don't want to invest all this time into your vacation, especially if you're flying or traveling to the location, because that's resources you'll never get back. Okay, you got on the ship.
Yeah, so we got to the arches. Arches? What are we going to call that? The Mickey ears to board?
The Mickey ear funnel thing.
Yeah, the funnel. So we get there to board, and then they have you stand on little dots. And I will say, this is a time that everybody stood on their dot. That was exciting. And they bring you in slowly. We actually went too far, but we didn't know we went too far because they were keeping you on your dots, but they were very much like, you have to come forward as soon as it's your time to come forward. And so the people in front of us left. So we went to the next dot, like we thought. But at that point, we were on the ship and we could kind of see the welcome show. But if you couldn't, you would stay on the other side of the ramp on your dot. Then they would bring you forward. It's one family per dot in the atrium, just like we've seen some pictures of now. And the cruise, I don't think that's the cruise director. I don't know who does it. I never saw the cruise director again on that cruise. So maybe it was him. Maybe it was some entertainment person. But they welcome you. And I'm sorry, listeners, you guys, I'm sure are yelling at your screen because you know who it, or your phone, you know who it is. But those kind of details, I'm always the worst at. And Mickey and Minnie are in there. And let me give you this little pro tip. If you are cruising, Mickey and Minnie face each of the families in such a way. I think there's like 8 families on these dots at a time. They face the families in such a way to take a selfie with Mickey and Minnie in the background and your child. It is adorable. And I didn't even realize they were doing it at first until you noticed it. So you can be ready. They'll look at you eventually before they walk up the stairs and do their singing and dancing and stuff. And they'll take a picture with your family, which I love. Captain Minnie and Captain Mickey. I mean, I guess he can have a tiny bit of love.
He's had the spotlight for too long.
I love you, Chris.
Okay, so you're on the ship. I already knew you would love the little show that they did because you get to be away from everybody and you get to see characters dancing on a staircase. But
perfection.
Yeah. After that's done, though, they probably want to get the next people on quickly and ready for the shows. So are they like, get out of the atrium?
Kind of. They actually announce that you will be escorted off to stay on your dot until you're escorted off. And then a crew member escorts you off. So you then are told, do you know how to tell where your muster station is? Like pull out your boarding pass, which our boarding pass had still had our guaranteed cabin on it. But I was like, because I didn't reprint it, it didn't occur to me. So reprint it if you have a guaranteed cabin, and then they send it to you. They send you the email with your cabin number, or you can see it. Reprint your boarding pass because it'll tell you your muster station because they have to look it up so that you know where to go. So then they request that you go to your muster station and take care of that.
Okay, well, that's cool because now you don't have to do the muster station the way you used to, which was inconvenient. What time did you get on the ship?
Around 2:00, just after 2:00.
Okay, so you got on just after 2:00, which is not the normal Christy Puttick way, but it's the new Christy Puttick way. So you're on the ship later. Probably that's too late for lunch. Had you already eaten?
Oh, I've eaten first lunch for sure. We actually ate it in the car. So we ate sort of like a smaller first lunch in the car on our way to the port.
I won't put any ideas in your head. What did you do first thing after your muster drill?
Well, so let me say, we first decided to go drop our bags because it wasn't on our way, but we decided to make it be on our way. So before going to like walk deck 4 outside, we went and dropped our bags in our stateroom. Then we went back down to our muster station. All you had to do was scan. It wasn't even a real scan, so I still don't exactly know what happened. Dave did it, but you basically scan your muster station code, but it's not a code and it didn't work right away, but then it eventually worked, whatever. That took 7 seconds. They told you to come here if something were to happen, and then there'll be a video in our room and a video on our phone. And can I just say, my little munchkin watched that video and he watched every little second of it because he is in love with safety videos. Every flight, he watches every second of it. He always wants to know where his little safety card is in the seat and like make sure to review it when they get to that part of the video and like learn where the exits are. It's adorable. So anyway, he did that the same. And we figured we would ask him if we had a question about what we needed to know for safety. Then we went to Cabanas. We didn't really need much. I had found a head waiter because I have to eat gluten-free as I'm celiac. And my family, I think we found a couple things for Blake to eat as well. Dave just had a salad because, we had eaten first lunch. We were going to be eating dinner in 3 hours. And I will tell our listeners that I booked this last minute. I always would wait list myself for first dining, and I got it quickly on this particular cruise. So the week before's cruise, it took several days to get my wait list cleared for first dining, but this one was pretty quick, actually.
What kind of room did you book? Since you dropped your bags off at it, I'd love to know what kind of room you were in.
We had booked a veranda, guarantee.
Were you pleased with the room location you ended up getting?
Yeah, we were like smack dab in the middle kind of the hallway between the midship and the aft elevators. I would never pick that location.
It's a lot of walking.
It's a lot of walking, but that's what you get for a guaranteed cabin. We were maybe a little bit closer to the aft elevators, but we were pretty far down that hallway. It's fine. For the price I paid, I have zero complaints about my cabin location.
So is there anything different about the rooms? We haven't really asked people that question, but anything different about the rooms other than the Dove chocolate, which I will take that out.
Actually, you should probably just leave it in. People are very interested about this Dove chocolate. When I actually posted a picture of one of my towel animals before we were recording today to see if people had questions, one travel agent even said, wait a minute, this chocolate is different? They changed the chocolate? There's other people that think that they're going to like switch back, and there's already discussion about people missing the Ghirardelli chocolate. So
the controversy. It
is now Dove, and there is some random station in your stateroom of like Disney. What did they call it? Like Disney sponsors or something like that. God, I wish I could think of what that word was. I should have taken a picture of it. But it literally is commercials. Like there was a Dove commercial playing on this channel. And I don't think we ever watched the channel again to see what other commercials are on there. In the past, in the staterooms, and I wonder if you guys would know this because your kids are never, Chris is a grown kid, but Steve doesn't have your kids were always older. Didn't they used to have cartoons that you could pick between, like the Disney Junior cartoons, like the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and Doc McStuffins? And Steve is shaking his head yes.
Yeah, they had, because my youngest loves those new Mickey shorts, so he would always find those too. Is that different than what you're asking?
Yeah, so that channel's still there. There is a whole channel of Mickey shorts all day long until nighttime when they read you bedtime stories. Like the same bedtime stories that you can get at Disney resorts and on the Disney Resort TV in the evening. There's like 6 stories or something. And they play the Mickey shorts all day long there. I'm almost certain that we could switch through the on-demand to actually get to TV shows. And you couldn't this time. There was only those Mickey shorts or movies that you could watch.
I will never understand why they don't just enable Disney Plus on all of their resort TVs and all of the cruise line TVs, because when we were at Aulani, we were looking through the TV, the like movies available, and there were like 4 or 5 Disney movies you could watch at Aulani. It was like Frozen 1, not even Moana. Who goes to Aulani and doesn't want to watch Moana? You could like, they just don't even have those options. I'm like, is there some business case not to include Disney Plus, when you're in the room? If anything, it gets people to see the product and be like, wow, I'd love to have this catalog at home. So
Right.
I'm confused why the catalog of available things at Walt Disney World, at Disneyland, at Aulani, and on the cruise ships is not essentially just a Disney Plus catalog.
I agree. And what's hilarious is their channels, ABC and the Disney Channel, for some reason they didn't have Disney Junior, they just had the Disney Channel, didn't work half the time.
Yeah, because it's satellite based, right?
Well, right. And then when they were in port, they didn't have permission to use it or some ridiculousness like that. My son still has this routine where he wakes up and he likes to have a cup of milk with some cartoons and he snuggles in. And frankly, he could be 13 and do that still. I mean, that's a little old maybe, but I love it and I support it fully. And I want him to snuggle me with cartoons. We could not find cartoons except for the crazy Mickey ones.
So nothing else different as far as the room goes is that you can really think of?
Think so.
Okay.
They still clean the room twice a day. They still have that over-the-shoulder backpack. Platinum Gift also includes those, which they came out with last year, well, whatever, 2019. The luggage tags, those Castaway Club luggage tags, and then your Castaway Club lanyards are in your room. Oh, and your key card, like Lake and Katie said, are in your fish extender before you enter your cabin. So you don't get your key to the world card until you're on the ship.
So usually like when you get on a Disney ship in the past, there's like kind of a flow of events. You get on and people go to cabanas, and then there's the muster drill and then the sailaway party. And then the first dining takes off and people go to the show or whatever else. But now it just seems like you could do whatever you want. What was that like? And was everything open? Obviously the shops aren't open in port, but were there bars open for people to go get drinks? The pool deck obviously was open. The aqua duck was going, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
There's obviously, what was it kind of like, I guess?
We didn't see the pool deck until maybe the end of the second night, which is, I cannot believe I just admitted that. I don't exactly know what was going. I do know that had they opened the aqueduct and the Mickey slide earlier each day, like in the morning, we would have gone to use those activities in the morning before going to Castaway. Because our 2 days, so it was a weekend cruise. We had 2 stops at Castaway Cay, and then we were back to Port Canaveral. We would have actually gone onto that pool deck and done some of those activities before going to the beach. Especially the first day, you don't even arrive until 9:30 or something. Yeah, they should open that earlier. Disney opened things earlier. Yes, there were bars open. And like Lake and Katie said, there was trivia that was already going on that afternoon. The atrium was filled with the Mickey and Minnie show. And there were lots of people still arriving later than even I arrived. That was pretty much going on until like 4:00. The one maybe thing about the feeling of this cruise that was different is it was so empty. It was almost like it was 7 a.m. every time you're walking around, almost everywhere. There were a couple of pockets. First seating and second seating were done, that it was a little bit crowded in the evening, or not crowded, but there was the hustle and the bustle of people. But a lot of times it was just kind of quiet, which is different. I like it, especially during COVID times. For me, I am still very COVID aware. I guess that's the only way I can think of to describe it. With Blake, we want to keep him as protected as possible. It was nice to not be in a crowd, but then you do miss out, I suppose, on that interacting with others type of atmosphere that you would typically get on a cruise. Everybody did have to wear face masks indoors. That was mostly followed, I suppose, like almost anywhere in life. There were definitely some people that just could not figure out how to cover their nose. I mean, their noses, they just did not stay inside a mask. So people ask about this question. So I'm just going to go into it. There wasn't as much crew members, cast members, telling people to put their noses back in their masks as I would have liked. And especially around the food areas, like in cabanas or when you're walking up, and there wasn't that many people. So you imagine maybe 1 in 10 weren't wearing their mask properly. But to me, my little anxiety-driven mind says that's the one who has risky behavior everywhere they go and could be walking around with, a disease, and we don't know about it or whatever. Or they're just, so this is just Christy being a little bit crazy. I get that. But I see it like almost to the extreme, like maybe I need medication to see it less. The nose is sticking out or the mask wearing not being done properly. And for whatever reason, enough people weren't noticing it. Now, some crew members would say things to some people, but it wasn't happening as often as I was seeing the occurrences. And I guess maybe my last subject, unless you guys bring up additional questions, at least for the next couple of months, that everyone will have to be vaccinated. There is, unless they're a kid and everybody's getting tested beforehand, there is that little extra bit of, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like, I'm happy.
Confidence?
Yes, confidence and security. Security in knowing that those additional steps are being taken. So there's less opportunity for us to be exposed to COVID. Hey, I mean, I've gone, 18 months without getting COVID. I don't want to get it now. Like, I would like to keep my family being COVID free. So that's it on that subject.
Okay, well, one staple of the Disney Cruise Line is kids clubs, and Blake is of the age to be able to go to kids clubs. What was that like? How did Blake find the kids clubs? Was there stuff to do on Castaway that was kids club-ish? Tell us more.
This was maybe his favorite kids club experience of any cruise ever. He wanted more constantly. Like the last full day of the cruise, I think he spent 6 hours in the kids club. If you count the time at Castaway Cay and the time that he was on the ship in the kids club, he thought it was great. The one thing the cast members at the kids club said is that, like, if you drop your kid off, because I think maybe we made an initial reservation of every time at like 6:30 or 6:45. We assumed we'd be done with dinner then, and he could go for a little bit, and Dave and I could walk around or something. And then our Apollo got moved once, so we had to move that a little bit. But she said, if you bring them at 6:45, the way they're working the kids club is that there's these stations, and the experience is going to be widely the same at 6:45 every day. So if you bring him at 6:45 and he doesn't like to do the same things every day, he might not enjoy that. Now, my child loves his little routine and loves to know what is happening and having something be the exact same. So for him, that was perfect. Changing the times was also very easy. Like, we were able to move on board our Apollo reservation. Initially, right before the cruise, I was able to make Apollo dinner reservation for the first night, but I wanted to move it to be the last night. And if not the last night, the second night. But I didn't want it necessarily on the first night because we had just gotten there and I wanted to acclimate and feed Blake and all this stuff. So we tried to move it and we were successful in moving it. So then we had to move Blake's kids club time. We had zero problem doing that. Once you have one kids club time, you can then go into the app, basically where you see, because this is really tricky actually, but where you see your kids club reservation that you've pre-made, you can then go in there. It's like one lit up button that you click to make an additional kids club time. And you can actually make kind of as many times as you want at that point for that day. Like, there was a time where we made one, and as soon as the time started, you could then make more. We made one that last day for him to go when we got back from Castaway Cay. I think he went at like 3 maybe. I almost want to say that particular time we went to get him, asked him if he wanted to stay. He did. We asked if there was space. There was. So he stayed again another hour. Then we went and got him so we could feed him because that was the day we were going to Apollo. We were not done with our Apollo reservation in an hour and a half, and we could see that writing on the wall. So we made an additional kids club reservation while at Apollo for the second hour and a half, which he didn't stay for all of. But in theory, they had told us you're supposed to come back in between your reservations to check your kid out and in or whatever. But the Apollo time, we didn't do that, and nobody seemed to care. And the time where Blake stayed earlier that day for the second reservation, when we asked if he wanted to stay, Blake never came back out of the room. Someone went off and asked him if he wanted. to stay? And he said yes. And so he wasn't ever checked in and out. He just was still in. So I think they're being more lenient on the kids club situation than people thought. At one point, Blake said there was like 2 kids in the kids club. So
well, that also might be why. If it were packed with reservations, they might be more strict, but because it's like super open.
Yeah, there was only 300 kids total on board in the 3 to 12 age group. So 1,500 people on board our cruise, it was last weekend that we went. And then 300, 3 to 12. And like, I think she said 100 like little kids when I asked somebody. The other thing with the kids club is there was basically, I had said they rotate through the stations and they're kind of the same. There were times he could pick, and my son always picked the craft, which I was a little proud of. You could pick, like, remember that driving the ship game that's in there? That's still going on. The Millennium Falcon, that's still going on. He could fly that. And he and Dave, the first day of the cruise, did go and check that out. I think I did decide to unpack at that point a little tiny bit. Here's a little tiny pro tip. If you're doing one of these 3 or 4 day cruises, you can actually open up your luggage, leave it open and unzipped and slide it under the bed and then never unpack it. I have to say that was a very freeing thing to do this cruise. So we like unpacked, toiletries and a couple little things. And I'm a freak. So we still did a little bit of the disinfecting of the cabin. And to that point, I asked the room steward if he changes his gloves or hand sanitizes or whatever in between every cabin. And he said, absolutely, so that everybody's germs can stay in their own cabins and not be spread to other people's cabins. So that made me happy. But yeah, so you just leave your suitcase under the bed. And when I needed underwear or shirts or whatever, I would pull the suitcase out, grab the thing, and then shove it back. So freeing. I am going to do that every short cruise for the rest of time. I loved it. So there were all those activities, and there were a lot more characters, I think, on this cruise in the kids club than were there on other times. I think during every little like major chunk of time, like where you would have this hour and a half chunk where they had a character come through. Sometimes they were reading stories or they were there for story time. So Blake like really loved all that. This was 8 years old, apparently, is prime kid club age. He loved it.
I think our kids were the same way. Alex was like 8, 9 or so. They totally loved it. And then on one of the European cruises, Andrew, like they were playing the Gaga Ball or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so the bigger kids in the Oceaneers Club were really active that time too. So that's when I think I've seen our kids really like it the most. So beyond the kids clubs, I know that Blake won a medal. Am I right? Or yeah. So what were some of the other onboard activities that they had? Did they have anything new? What did you guys take part of?
To be new, we're going to have to ask somebody else about the new, because to say new would imply that I'd ever done any of these activities before. And I had never done any of these activities before. They had all these like family game show type things. The game that we played, it was like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Remember that show? And where there's the different things and you could ask an audience. I don't know. There was some sort of name I'm sure they gave it. And I absolutely would never have put that in my brains. And for Blake, they did offer him some help so that Dave could come help him. But Blake knew almost all those answers, like he guessed them himself. And the staff member who was doing the game, those activities host person, she helped a little bit too. So there was like one gal who did such a good job. She was probably like 12 years old. She got all these answers right herself. Her family wasn't even helping. Like I would watch the family, when she was up there, she would look at them and they wouldn't give any indication of the answer. I was like, come on, help her cheat. But she didn't. But the host did it. So they had that. They had a ton of games. So anyway, Blake won, made it all the way to the end of the 5 questions of the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire type question game. And it was all Disney related questions. It was super cute. And they said like the questions will get harder the further you go. So that's just something known. You could ask the audience. It was adorable. They had bingo, of course. They had the How Do You Know Your Family? They had they were too late and it wasn't going to work. And I was going to be by myself. So I was never going to go to this by myself. But they had the adult marriage show. What is
Match Your Mate?
Match Your Mate. They had that twice. Twice seems like a lot, right? Like they offered it the first time. I don't know. Maybe nobody showed up or something. But then they had it the second time. All the activities were in the app. All of them. I know you guys like that. It's not my favorite thing. I want to at least see like what all of my options are without scrolling.
Honestly, Disney Cruise Line app is probably one of the worst apps in their arsenal. I feel like the worst is 100% Alani. I have never experienced such a useless app that was also required for my experience because it had information I needed. But Disneyland, as someone who just became a Magic Key holder, Disneyland's app is so good right now, and they're about to push a huge update with Genie Plus or whatever. I feel like they just need a refresh on the DCL one, and then it won't be as painful for you. Though I know that you'll always want a paper, and I understand that.
I like paper. Thank you. Thank you for understanding. And they had like the different categories. You had to like slide through categories to figure out like the pool hours, and then they weren't even very clear. And the eating, I still am not sure where I could find what the hours of like one of the food places was. It was just, I was not happy to not have a sheet of paper to give me some information. But anyway, it was there. There was a lot of activities. There were a lot of game show type activities. There was still live music. I think there were more random character interactions or like characters out than I'd ever seen before. Tons of princesses in the lobby, like lots, in my opinion, of princess times where they wouldn't even always announce it. And then there were just princesses in the lobby. You could stand, like at Walt Disney World, we don't get proper character interactions right now, but you could stand your 8 feet away or whatever from these characters and have fantastic conversations and interactions. That may have been one of the best, maybe entertainment that we experienced on the cruise, was this character interaction that A, we all needed, but B, was just so good. Like the characters were so fun and they were just there.
That's like awesome. How about the pool deck? You guys got up on the pool deck the second day. Any problems as far as finding a place, social distancing, that type of stuff?
We didn't stay there. So I guess part of the thing with having 2 days at Castaway Cay and your cruise being basically 2 days long is there's literally no time for anything. So there was a bunch of lightning in the afternoon of the one day, which is when Blake went back to the kids club. That would have been, in theory, a perfect time to go and see the pool deck, but it was closed because of lightning and big old storms. But the times we were there and what we could see when we saw it, there was lots of space available. I guess I can't really answer that question very well.
Okay, so the pools were pools, though the ocean is probably much better than a pool. So tell us about Castaway. How was your Castaway experience? You got to go twice, right? So what was that like?
Oh my God, it was so good. So there is this like enter the queue to get off the ship. And so you have to, just like getting on Rise of the Resistance, you have to enter at the right time, the virtual queue to get off. I missed it by 10 minutes the one day because I think I was having breakfast or forgot. Our spot was like, you are 300th to get off. It's like, well, that's ridiculous. So whatever, make sure you don't miss the time that you have to enter it, or that you have to enter the virtual queue to get off. But it wasn't really a big deal. We weren't ready before then anyway. It was glorious. It was as glorious as you would imagine. Blake wanted to go to the kids club. So we actually both days dropped him there at the beginning. When you walk off the ship, you could take a tram, but we just walked. Also, when you walk, that's when you see the first set of characters on the island. They have this like little beach hideaway, and oh my God, Mickey and Minnie were so cute with their little radio and their dance party, their beach dance party. Oh, that was adorable. And I am so glad we walked that first day going to Castaway. So we took Blake to the kids club, and then they were just like, we close at 1, so make sure you get him before then. He could have stayed for 3 hours if we wanted him to. Dave and I got a drink. The drink servers they were fun and helpful and available. And we went and floated in the ocean, and it was everything you'd want it to be. It was like a hot, sunny day. The water, lagoon or whatever, was refreshing. And there wasn't a ton of people. It wasn't super loud. There were tons of snorkelers going out to get to see, their sunken treasures. We did not do that. It was really nice. Cookies was the same and was actually good. The second, there was a lot less choices. So just for everybody in all the food areas, there's a lot less choices in the buffets in general. For me, for an allergy, I still had to pre-order. And I was like, what did I eat on the island the previous years? So I just was like tomato salad and whatever else, potato salad. They didn't even serve that tomato salad on either of those days, but they made it just like it used to look 2 years ago, the last time I was at Castaway. So that was super fun to me. The food at Castaway was warm and good. The second day, though, they didn't have hot dogs again unless you had an allergy. So that was tough for my son. Next time I would just order him, like go up to, because we were at Cookies One where the allergy people are anyway. They have all the extra allergy food. I would just order him an extra hot dog because he ended up having to eat one of my one hot dog because he didn't like the rest of the food choices. So just something to keep in mind. There were people doing their biking and like some of the a couple of excursions that they have going. So I think the island was still great. And like some other people have reported, I heard that the Serenity Bay, the adults only beach, was more crowded than the family beach.
It kind of makes sense to me because I think that, I mean, just even thinking about some of the people we talked to, that most of them don't have kids.
Right.
That have been on these cruises.
And there's like some other people that were cruising and I was like, should we have a trip report from them? Well, it's more people without kids. And next week we have another couple without kids. And that's great. But we want to make sure that people with kids know what that experience is like as well. So
good for us with the kids that the family beach is nice and quiet.
So
for
awesome.
our 5K runners, anything on that?
There were apparently no medals this time. They had said in the a couple weeks before, I think there was a couple of listeners on, right, that just said it's do it yourself. But this time they didn't have any medals, which is sad. Like that's kind of a bummer if you did your little 5K and you don't get your medal. They said
so
they
people
didn't
were
get
still
them.
running, but there was, because I think Lake said that they just put it in your room, maybe. But
yeah, and this cruise they reported they didn't have any
supply chain problems, I guess, huh?
Apparently.
I don't know, but it's still, having a day there, floating around in your raft and just kind of enjoying yourself. I've got that visual in my head, and I just can't wait to get back there too. So
it was so great. We actually didn't buy the raft or didn't rent the raft. We did watch, they wipe them down in between every person. Oh, they do that on which is probably excessive, but whatever. They do that on the aqueduct as well, where they wipe them down in between the people who are using them.
Okay. So that probably slows it down a little bit.
That ride was so slow. The boys actually waited 45 minutes. I thought people would have been getting off. This was the second Castaway day. I thought people would have just been getting off to go right to the island, and they didn't, apparently. They went on the ride. So whatever, they loved it. Blake wanted to go again.
Anything else that we haven't touched on with Castaway then? Any tips?
Don't forget your towels before you leave. And no, I don't think there's any tips. They still have ice cream. They still have cookies. I could have ordered gluten-free dessert. Actually, Sarah will tell us this when she comes on, but I learned this after the fact by looking at her Instagram. So next time, maybe I'll order myself dessert too, because she said it was very good.
Before I ask you a bunch of other just quick questions, anything stand out about dining? Yeah, obviously, you guys went to Palo one night, which sounded amazing. Anything about the main dining rooms themselves? Really
quick, Palo, I think, was the best Palo dining experience we've ever had. I mean, Palo is always really good, but the dinner, the food, temperature, everything was perfection.
I saw you get the lemon tart too for dessert. So
I definitely did not get the lemon tart. And I'm pretty sure I texted you during the cruise because the waiter was like, yes, you have to get the chocolate souffle. That is the signature dish. When the other waiter was taking the tables around us, they said, oh, yes, you have to get this chocolate souffle because that's the proper dish. You have to get the chocolate souffle. And now they have the prefix menu. My husband did not order the prefix menu. He ordered it off the regular menu. I ordered off the prefix. There was one course that was like a starter and the salad or whatever. I gave Dave my salad. We each had our main courses and our desserts that we each had. I had my caprese, whatever. You'll know when you look at it, but there's kind of like 2 starter courses and I just split the salad with him and it was perfect. Okay. It was perfect. The regular dining room, my server was potentially the best ever. I've actually requested him on a future cruise. He was just so great the whole time. I even got to go and have breakfast the last morning on second seating in the dining room, which if you ever have first seating, I mean, who wants to eat breakfast at 6:30 in the morning? Nobody, unless you have an early flight or something. So you can sort of bring up that you would go to breakfast if you didn't have to go to 6:30 in the morning and see what they say. And our head waiter's like, oh, I'll get you a table, no problem. Just stop by. The one thing I'll say, and somebody else said this, at Cabanas, there's way less choices. There's just way, like breakfast. Breakfast has like 4 choices of something to eat for breakfast. Besides like parfaits, there was probably like 3 parfait choices themselves, and then 4 additional choices. Really small. I went for sit-down breakfast one of my mornings, and I am so grateful I did. The service was amazing. It was warm. The food came out really warm. I got to stare at Castaway Cay while I ate it. My boys stayed upstairs and watched their Crazy Mickey cartoon and had their milk because neither of them care about breakfast. It was just a lovely little breakfast. The rest of the meals were fine and the food was hot. My food, because of my allergy meals, Dave tried some of my stuff and he did say that my main dishes weren't as good as his. And it's possible that they were like done and had to be sitting under a heat lamp or something. They were still warm, but like the chicken was dry and the meat was like tasted almost reheated. It was not my favorite part of the cruise, but I didn't go without ever. And the one meal, the chicken was really dry. And I just ordered more of, this was Animator's Palate. I ordered more of that appetizer, that manchego, whatever, cheese. Yeah. Whatever. I just ordered an additional dish of that. It was perfect. I had my beautiful walnut cake every night for dessert in the dining rooms, which is gluten-free naturally. So that was fantastic. Our service was amazing. Loved it.
I love to hear that about the service and just the employees wanting you back, or the cast members wanting you back. The good thing is, I think that we've heard overall that the food is really good. People have been really impressed by it. So maybe just because of your gluten-free, that maybe they made it ahead of time, like you said. Unfortunately, maybe kind of like the kids' meals where they sit there.
Right, which with my kid is perfect because he likes like room temperature food.
What about the logistics? So obviously not putting families together at the same table, keeping everybody separate.
Yeah. At one table, there was a couple of 2 and another couple of 2. And they were at opposite, this was in Animator's Palate, I believe. They were at opposite ends of a 10-person, or I think it was a 10-person table. That seemed weird to me.
Are we supposed to make a conversation with these people, or but they're so far down there that I don't know?
Right. And they even had different servers, but they were at the same table.
Interesting. And was there other tables open that they could have moved them around?
I think so.
Oh, yeah, that's odd.
This is 2. So like previous guest had stated, they stagger your dining times now, where your Key to the World card will say, like ours said 5:50. So I don't remember what time real dining starts, 5:30, I think, for first seating. And ours said 5:50 because they don't want everybody to come at once. But our server actually said, tomorrow, just come at the regular time, because I think it'll make your dining experience a little bit better, because it's like, feels a little off and, you know, we're not doing things at the same time. So I will say that he did suggest that we just come at 5:30, and we did. And I did think there was maybe a little bit of a difference of that meal, but
I mean, did you see that it was like that big of a problem with everybody coming at once at 5:30 anyways? So when you guys did come, but
yeah, because
I mean, I get what they're trying to do, right? I get what they're trying to do. I was just curious over when you did do that. Was it? No. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I got a bunch of questions here. What about booking another cruise on board? Do they actually have somebody you can talk to, or is it just the app where you do the pre-booking? That it was only the app. The 2 desks where the people, at least I never saw anybody there, where you would typically have a cast member that could let you book a specific cruise or ask questions to. I did not see them located there. The DVC people were still there, by the way. And there were magnets on your cabin door when you arrived. And maybe because I was guaranteed, maybe I didn't get a magnet that way, but you could stop if you were DVC at that desk and get their hours were crazy limited, but you could stop at the desk and get your magnet. And then if you showed up the second or the third day, they had hats that like usual that you could get if you were DVC. So that's fun. Bring your blue cards with you. Yeah, well, having a 3-day cruise with 2 of them at Castaway Cay, they were probably really limited on what the times they could do it. So they were still doing DVC presentations and everything.
No, I don't think they were doing presentations. They were at their desk.
Okay, so you could talk to them and get the information from them. What else do I got here? And then as far as if you had any issues while you're on the cruise, talking to the people down at guest services, most of that was try and handle it with the app. And then if you couldn't resolve it that way, then you could go to the desk.
Yes. I don't know if it was just me. I couldn't quite get it to work right. Like you had to stay on that screen the whole time, or it took you out of the queue and put you back in. And then But I've heard for other people, it could have been a user error, let's be honest, that for other people, it worked very well. I actually called guest services twice. I don't remember why I had to call them twice. Oh, maybe once was because I wanted my DVC magnet. I was like, oh, I didn't get it. And it goes, just show up at the desk when they arrive. They arrive at 7. So I did that. And then the other time they answered so quickly. Like I remember always in the past, you call guest services and they're like, we're too busy to take your call. So they really wanted to make sure that they were keeping people out of line. The other random guest services thing, and I still have to figure out how to get this. We never got our invoice printout at the end of the cruise. And most of the people, I don't know if anybody got it, but didn't get it. So I would actually tell people to take screenshots on your last day of your invoice on the app so that you can see where you're at and what you're getting charged for. Because we didn't receive an email. We have never received anything to tell us why and how they came up with the amount of money they charged us.
If anybody wonders why Chris isn't talking, he had to run to a meeting. So that's why Christy and I are finishing it up here. We didn't talk about the shows. Did you guys take in the shows at all? Any hints on those?
They were offering Beauty and the Beast twice. So 2 different nights. And they did a movie the third on the other night. So we opted not to go to the shows.
Did Dave go to a movie or did you guys go to a movie?
None of us went to a movie.
Okay, but you did go to
time.
Yeah, I know. It goes by quick on 3 days.
It was so fast.
Yeah.
So we did go to the fireworks. I loved it. It was like our time was like at 8:45. I mean, I'll do anything. I can go to do something at 8:45 and you stand on a dot again. It was so cool. I could handle it if they kept this. They had fireworks with Disney music. It was a few minutes long. I absolutely loved it. We all loved it. We got a great spot up the banister. People stood on their little dots. It's funny. They told us to not move at the end, that they were going to dismiss us. No one ever came to dismiss us. Actually, we were like, I guess we leave.
Guess we're all leaving now. Moo. The herd moves on.
Oh, yeah. Well, there wasn't a herd because there wasn't very many people. And we waited until they dismissed us. So people really were gone and they just never dismissed us. So then we just decided to leave on our own.
Okay. And then for our Buccaneer swashbuckling crews out there that love Pirate Night, it's basically just the dinner. Did they even have that? Was that what Pirate Night was? It was like the dinner, but they don't do the show or anything like that.
They don't do the show. And on the 3 night, they don't have the special menu. And I'm pretty sure that nobody was dressed up for Pirate Night. Okay. But some people said they were going to dress up for Pirate Night.
Okay.
I just didn't see it.
So one of our favorite nights is usually it's the second night of the crew. It's formal night. And so usually you go down into the atrium and they'll have like free champagne and wine and stuff like that. And a lot of the cruise officers will be out there, but did they have anything like that?
That did not occur at all. And on that second night, we actually were in the atrium before dinner because we wanted pictures. I wanted to get a family picture of us. And so we did go to a couple of the different picture locations to get pictures together.
Okay. And then as far as pictures go, it's still the same process. Like if you get your picture taken there, go up to, they've got the photo area, Photoshop area where you can pick out what you want to buy.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was the same.
I wish they'd put that on the app where you could just, where you could just like look at the pictures, and then,
take pictures of it.
Right. So. Right. So what am I missing? What haven't we talked about? What haven't I asked you about?
This is random. And it's totally off topic, but one of our listeners asked us if Nemo's Reef was still open, like how many kids under 5 were there. I don't know what the ship count were for children under 5. We do know that from 0 to 3, there was like the 100 that I mentioned earlier. I asked some of the people in my cruise group if it was open because I didn't pay attention. It had limited hours for sure. Just like the slides, they were not open all day long every day. But she said, yes, it was open and that usually there's between 2 and 6 kids playing in there. So that's cute.
Oh, perfect. Mm-hmm. Did you go up to like Satellite Falls or anything like that? Were there very many people up there?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did on the second night when Blake was at the kids club or the last night when Blake was spending more time in the kids club after Castaway when it had finally stopped storming again. I went up there. It was fairly dead. It was lovely. You're supposed to sit in chairs. You're not supposed to move the chairs. They have, them socially distanced as well. It was very nice.
Okay, so I got two last questions. One is a random comment. One of the places that we really loved on the Dream and the Fantasy when we were on there is kind of that area that's above the adult pool, but towards the kids area. Does that make sense? And it's kind of a multi-use area where parents and kids can both be, because as your kids get older, they don't want to be down in the kids' soup, and you don't want to be down there with the masses of people, by the funnel vision and everything like that. And we found that that's kind of a nice area to kind of hang out as a family and like read a book, and the kids can kind of come and go. And I wonder if they have anything like that on the Wish. I haven't really noticed it. They've got to have something like that on the Wish. Does that make sense? Like where Satellite Falls is only adults, but there's that kind of one area where it's kind of multi-use, I guess. So
yeah. And in the one ship, for sure in the Dream, and I would assume on the Fantasy too, but they have that other random little splash pool that you could like just for the adult one. So they have the little splash pool and Satellite Falls, which is Satellite Falls. Right. But they have one in that little multi area, which we had loved playing in before, especially when Blake was littler and he wanted to bring his little toys in there. You can't bring toys into the main pools there for some whatever safety, blah, blah, blah. So he would bring them into this other place. Yes. I don't know. I hope they'll have something like that on the Wish.
Yeah, that's kind of random. I just thought about it. We love that area, so I hope they have something like that on the Wish. I'm sure that they will have something.
Yeah, I love those little buckets of areas.
Yeah.
People are so into the chocolate. I was just looking on Instagram to see if there was any more questions that came through, and people are still like, what is this Dove chocolate? So I guess that's going to be the newest controversial item. I cannot say that word today. Item of the restart of cruising, right? Dove has replaced Ghirardelli.
Ghirardelli. I don't have a dog in the fight because I like Cadbury from living in England, and people probably go, I don't like Cadbury, so whatever, I guess.
I think they're both good. How about that?
Chocolate is chocolate. It's good. Well, I guess one last question. Anything about the spa area? Did you talk to anybody that experienced time in the spa? No. Okay.
No. Sorry.
No, it's okay. We know like the rainforest room is a little bit different where you're gonna have to book a whole time period, and it's going to be a little bit more expensive rather than,
I think it's like $330.
Yeah.
And you get it all yourself. So I do know that there was one person in our cruise group that went, like 3 guys went, and they did say they loved the rainforest experience. So
yeah, if you had a whole group and you have the whole place to yourself for like an hour or two, I think that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
So if you get some onboard booking credits that you can use. Well, disembarkation, was it as easy as others have said?
Oh my God. It was maybe easier, although it didn't start happening until later. So we were walking down to breakfast at 8:15, and they at that time released the first set of luggage tags. Maybe they had the people walking off already leave. But if you had a luggage tag, 8:15 is when it started, which isn't that later than normal? Like, I feel like, yeah, that's later. So if you had that early breakfast, you would have been waiting a little tiny bit, just something, I guess, to keep in mind. But once we went to leave, we had a very quick breakfast. It was a breeze.
So we're going to park in the parking garage. I've never done that before. Do you pay? Is that a prepay or do you pay as you leave?
You prepay.
Okay. Is that when you get there, or how?
Yeah. When we rolled up, they were like, insert your credit card at $68, 68 or 64, one of those two for a 3-night cruise.
Perfect.
And this is crazy too. When we went to leave, all of the cones and the people and the arrows that are going to be showing up like 3 hours later to get people off or to get the next people on, they're all gone. So the testing areas stuff is on like the first 2 levels of the parking garage. And so they set that up apparently between every cruise, because then when the cruise is over or when it's time to disembark, they clean it all up so that you can leave. It wasn't there. We were like, whoa, it all left. And they have to bring it back because it's not like, cruising is done. So I don't know. To me, that was interesting.
the dwarves come out and set it back up.
I'm guessing something, right? Little mice.
Little mice from Cinderella. All right. I guess as we kind of finish up, any other tips or things you can think of? And I'll just let you summarize what your overall thoughts were, Christy. It sounds like you guys had a wonderful time, and overall, some differences, but overall, just a wonderful time.
We had a wonderful time. We're cruising again. Spoiler alert. I can't wait. And I'm just as excited from going on this cruise as I am getting ready to go on the next ones. One, I guess, tip that I hadn't thought of until we got into the cabin again. If you remember, I did post this on the DCL podcast Facebook page. And then I think I tweeted it as well. So you can look or just reach out to me and I'll send you the stuff. But that bathroom is so dark again, or so bright. So, they have the split bathroom and it's very dark on the Dream. And I feel like one of the ships had like a little nightlight in there. It must have been, it was clearly not the Dream because that bathroom was just dark all the time. So tell me, listeners, is there a ship that has, like, if the lights are off, just the tiniest little nightlight naturally somewhere under the cupboard that is the night so you can see? But anyway, we are buying a rechargeable light that we will leave on the counter because we don't want that full-blown light on all night long. But people in my little traveling party have to go to the restroom in the middle of the night, and we need some light in there. And there's no plug that you can even plug your own nightlight in. So Brian, one of our listeners, did indicate that he usually brings little tea lights. I think it was Brian. And that's great, but they're not light enough. We had a couple, but maybe they're 100 years old, but they weren't light enough. So we're going to bring this little rechargeable light and see if that helps next time.
Well, some good tips there. Yeah. And I know a lot of hotel rooms now, they have lights underneath the counters and they're kind of motion sensitive. So it'd be nice if they did something like that.
Oh, and little magnets. So we happened to buy, I think this was for the Alaskan cruise because we knew we'd have all these coats and stuff. Those magnets that you just stick on the wall because it's, metal cabins. And we would, because they have hooks up pretty high in the cabin. So you hang your face mask on it. But we put these lower too, so that Blake could reach it. And then we all just put our little face masks on there and then we could grab them on the way in and out of the cabin.
Well, I guess as we get out of here tonight or this afternoon or this morning or whatever time it is, I'm glad you guys had just such a wonderful trip. If any listeners have any other questions, feel free to reach out to Christy. Where can they find you, Christy? And if they are looking for a travel agent services, where can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can find me everywhere at Pack Your Pixie Dust. I do have a blog website, packyourpixiedust.com. Maybe I'll actually write a little blog post about my experience. I'm really bad at actually writing it there, so we'll see if that happens. But Instagram, I'm posting pictures. Obviously, you can find me through DCL Podcast, Instagram, and Facebook. Steve can always get a message over to me too. So Christy at packyourpixiedust.com is my email. And I'd love to answer your questions or talk to you about helping you plan your next vacation.
Well, next up for you is the Fantasy. And then I believe it's a Celebrity Cruise and then Royal Caribbean. So you got a lot of bases to cover and a lot of information to get out to our listeners. Did I say it right?
Actually, the Fantasy, the Dream, then Celebrity Apex, then Royal Caribbean.
Oh my goodness.
I booked a last minute. Okay, so our listeners, you get to hear it here first, except for our patrons. I will tell you, we have a Patreon program. We have a Patreon Facebook group. It's super fun. If you are interested, obviously there's no obligation. We love you anyway. But if you are interested, patreon.com/DCL podcast. So I was asked by Disney Cruise Line if I wanted to come and experience their ships and to check out one of their cruises. And so we have been accepted to cruise on the Disney Fantasy September 18th, which is amazingly around the corner. So yes, we are going, assuming we have proper COVID test and no school quarantine. So let's cross our fingers so I can let you know how the Fantasy is compared to the Dream once I get back from that. I didn't know that this opportunity was going to occur. We had booked a last minute Dream cruise for some random day my kid has off school. So we are going on the Dream on a 3-night early October as well. So that is happening. So we have a few cruises in the next 5 weeks.
I love it. And I have to let our listeners know too that Disney actually invited us to come on the Disney Wonder in October. They said if you would just pay this amount of money, they would host us. And we did. So Anna Wake and I are going to be on the Wonder in October. So I think we got a lot of the ships covered for all our listeners out there over the next couple months. But if you are going to be cruising with Disney Cruise Line anytime soon and would like to come on and share your experiences, you can reach out to me, Steve at DCLpodcast.com. We'll get you set up to come on the show and hear your experiences as well. So Christy, thank you so much for this. And I think you wanted to say something else before I rambled on here.
Really quick, we are going to do a 101 show on cruising with families with young kids. We need somebody with young kids. I will be able to share my experience of what we would bring, but now that was many years ago, but what we would bring with Blake. But we would love somebody else to come on as well to discuss traveling with young kids. So if you are in that category, please reach out to Steve so that we can see about recording at some point in the future.
Yeah, I love the one-on-one shows. It really helps people out there. We've got a lot of good feedback on that one. So, all right, as we get out of here today, once again, Christy, I'm glad you guys had just an amazing time on the Dream. Thank you so much for doing this trip report for everybody. And I can't wait to see all of your pictures on the Fantasy.
Yes, me too.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming back and taking a listen, everybody. And we'll see you next time on the DCL podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I want to thank Christy for coming on and sharing her experiences as they sailed on the beautiful Disney Dream. So exciting to finally have a trip report from one of us here at the DCL podcast. Always fun to talk to Christy and experience her sailings with her as well. We have quite a few more trip reports lined up. And of course, Christy's going to be sailing on the Disney Fantasy. We've got a couple other guests who will be sailing on the Disney Fantasy. And the Disney Wonder, she begins sailing out of San Diego as well. Well, if you're enjoying our podcast and you know somebody else who would enjoy it, we sure would appreciate it if you'd reach out to them and pass it on. That helps us get to be a little bit better known in the Disney cruising, and just the Disney podcasting community in general. Also, if you have time for a iTunes review, if you go over to iTunes and leave us a review, that also helps us get the show known a little bit better in all those communities as well. We also want to give a huge shout out to our Patreons who help bring this show to you each and every week. If you go over to patreon.com/DCL podcast, you can find out all the information there. Well, as we move on into the fall, the leaves start to change and the kids are back in school. If you guys have a vacation planned, on behalf of myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, all of us here at the DCL podcast, we want to wish you to be well, take care of each other, enjoy the time you spend together with each other on those sailings and on those vacations, and we'll see you next time on the DCL podcast. The DCL podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.